Okay. Mim is now the host.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. Right, well, good evening, councillors. Welcome to this Harpenden Town Council planning meeting. We do not have any members of the public in attendance tonight, so I'll just go straight through the agenda as is. And first of all, do we have any apologies for absence? Well, we don't. Paul is here, but he's tried to sort himself out on a laptop.
No, we have none.
Declarations of interest. Okay, I'm the only one. I've got. And oh, Pip. So Pip, first of all, you've got a declaration of interest.
Well, it's for 11 Oak Way, which is our neighbours, but it's not for. I just thought I'd mention it. This application does not meet the criteria, but just in case anybody did raise something about
Yes.
it.
Fair enough. I've got two. I think one of them, mine doesn't. I'm just raising a declaration of interest in respect of application 520-2726 at 45 Alzey Gardens, because I live plonk opposite it. And in fact, when you look at the pictures, you'll see a nice scenic view of my car. And 5/20/20/2737 at 65 Alzey Gardens. I'll declare an interest in that, and again, not take any part, as I know the householders.
Okay.
Do we have any other declarations? No. Oh, Paul, Matthew.
I just note that the garden behind me at number 12 Morton End Lane have got a tree works application in. So if we were to discuss it, I wouldn't take part.
No, we just note the tree application, so you should be okay there. Moving on to item 3, the minutes of the meeting of the Planning Committee held on the 22nd of December 2020, which have been circulated. Are you all content that I sign these when I can as a true and fair record of the meeting?
Unanimous.
Thank you. Item 4, public court questions in accordance with standing orders 22 and 23. Do we have any?
No, none have been received.
No. Item 5, letters of objection. Have
No,
we received any?
No further letters received since the agenda.
Okay, well, in that case, we'll move then to agenda item 6 and look at the applications for the week ending the 18th of December, the 24th of December and the 31st of December. And as previously mentioned, since there are no members of the public present, we'll go just straight through those in order, starting with 5/2020-2323. So hand over to you, Mim.
Okay, so Mim, I think we've got some good pictures for you to share.
Yeah, so you can pull up the pictures and then Hez can fire away.
Okay, so my observations are that there are a number of objections have already been received from surrounding residents of the area, with concerns that include the effect on the surrounding area from the new dwelling, highway conflict from the new access point on the bend in an already narrow road, loss of trees and landscaping. So I said that the plot appears to be quite tight, with significant trees and landscaping requiring removal to achieve the proposal, with no planned replacements as part of the landscaping plan. Addition of one dwelling in this location doesn't appear to be in keeping with the area, which is surrounded by residential gardens. The access is located on a bend in the road, which is lined with fencing and hedging, with no development or dwellings. The road also appears to be relatively tight, with on-street parking evident. Sightlines could be an issue. Believe the previous reasons for refusal and appeal dismissal still stand. So you can see on these images here that Mim's just sharing. So if you go back to the very first one, Mim, you can quite sort of clearly see how sort of kind of the location of this proposed dwelling, essentially in the location where it says RO30, is really kind of, well, it's you know, backland development, which just really isn't in keeping. And then if you move on to image number 3, So you can see here what is currently in the line in the road. We've got sort of essentially a pair of gates which go to a garage stroke sort of parking area at the rear of these gardens, which will be lost. And then there is this access road which has been proposed in the hedge line there. And if you move on to image number 4, you can see there's a little red dot that just depicts where this particular gateway is. So it would be essentially accessing out onto this particularly tight road, which has got on-street parking evident all the way along. So I shall pass it over to you for your deliberation.
And the access is coming out. Not only is it narrow, it's a bend.
It is, yeah.
Okay. So any comments, councillors? Paul. That's Paul de Court. So yes.
I'm muted, I think, at the moment.
Yes, you are. You're fine. We can hear you. Thank you.
Good. I agree with all of the officers' comments written and made there. I mean, there are a whole series of problems. I don't want to particularly, all of them are significantly problematic, but the road, Langdale Avenue, and that location can't support it.
Can't.
Absolutely,
absolutely right. Nigel.
Funnily enough, thanks, Chair. Funnily enough, I actually have sympathy with this application for the simple reason it's a big bit of backland that's not doing anything else. It is derelict effectively. I don't think the access is that bad compared with some of the other buildings I've seen where permission has been given to drive into backland. The corner's going the right way, so coming out there you can see in both directions, and it's not a very tall building that's been proposed. So I must admit, I actually have some sympathy with an application for this site.
Any other comments? Any other comments? I mean, I would just draw attention to as well to councillors just to take on board the reasons why they lost on appeal previously, and I think they do not seem to have fully met those reasons as well. I think it's quite important to notice they lost the previous appeal. So, Paul, did you want to? Paul,
I was just going to say, to my mind, it's quite unusual for the district council planning officers to dislike applications like this. We do see a lot of them. So if they have refused them and it's gone to appeal and that's been refused, I think we've got fairly strong grounds to refuse.
Yes, I mean, I would add, I think if we minded to, I would add on recommend refusal as previous grounds for refusal and dismissal of appeal have not been fully addressed or have not been met. So could I sort of ask councillors for a show of hands on that wording? And Nigel, do you want to?
I will abstain.
Fine. Okay, fine. So
it's agreed that we'll recommend refusal. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And could you add the wording as previous reasons?
Yeah.
Yes.
Previous
Yes.
refusal and appeal dismissal still have not been addressed.
Yes. Thank you. Right, moving on to, we're going on to one of the 45 Alzey Gardens where I've declared an interest. So could I just hand over for this one to Matt to handle, please, and I won't comment or vote.
Thank you, Rosemary. So this is 5/2020-2726 at 45 Alzey Gardens, or Alzey Gardens. I'm not entirely sure how the road is pronounced. I will hand over to Heather for officer observations.
Okay, so Mim, I think there's some images for this particular application as well. So the site is located at the end of the road with the community open space to the side and to the rear. The bulk of the proposal is to be to the side of number 46 Alzey Gardens, although at ground floor level only, with a flat roof. 1.8 metre gap from the boundary to the neighbour's property, There is a loss of garage, although there appears to be ample parking on the long driveway, no additional bedrooms and no tree work. I've suggested consider no objection.
Thank you, Heather. Councillors, any comments on this application? I can't see any hands. In that case, we'll proceed to a vote on the recommendation of no objection. All in favour?
That's unanimous.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Rosemary, would you like the chair back for the one in between, or shall I take us through to the next one that you've got an objection to as well? Not an objection to, sorry, interest in.
Rosemary,
You're on mute.
we can't actually hear you, I'm afraid. Rosemary, we can't actually hear you.
I forgot to unmute. Sorry about that. Since the next application does not meet criteria required for consideration by the committee, perhaps, Matt, we could go straight on to 65 Alsay Gardens.
Perfect. Thank you, Rosemary. Perfect. So it's 5/2020-2737, 65 Alsay Gardens. Heather, your observations.
Okay, so once again, we've got some images to help to explain the application. So the proposed extensions are all to the side of the application property that borders the road's turning area, therefore reducing the impact on the neighbouring property. The garage is to be demolished, although there is space for 3 cars on the driveway. Additional bedroom added to be a total of 4. The 45-degree visibility zone with number 46 has been well satisfied. No tree works. Proposal appears to be in keeping with the existing property and the surrounding area.
Thank you, Heather. Councillors, any comments on this one? Paul Ducourt.
It's a really quick one. I just want to check from that picture that there's a path there to the side. Just who owns that path, and is there any potential restriction of that path accessing what they're planning to do? And if they're not, I've got no problem at all.
Okay, so Mim, if you could just go back to the images so that I can see the drawing. Okay, so the pathway, what sort of this pathway that goes along the hedge line, Paul, is that the one you're referring to?
Just on the picture, there's a tarmac path. I couldn't tell which. Sorry, I couldn't tell which way that was that affected at all. But yeah.
No, that is that path there is actually a public path. It's like an alleyway. So the border, the boundary line for this property is actually the hedge line. So all of the proposed works.
Okay.
If you move on, Mim, to the next image, or actually carry on to the image number 11. That's it. So you can see here, Paul, that you've got the sort of, there's like a blue blob sort of line.
Yeah.
That is the hedge line. And then above that is the public footpath, which goes along as an alleyway. And then beyond that is the parking area that you can see in the images.
Oh, that's absolutely fine. That's what I thought it was. I just want to double check before how that was in terms of pedestrian access. So that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other councillor comments? I can't see any hands. In that case, I will move to a vote on the recommendation of no objection. All in favour?
That's unanimous.
Perfect. And I'll hand back to Rosemary for the rest of the meeting.
So Rosemary, you need to unmute yourself. Sorry.
I'm so unused to muting during planning. I never remember to unmute. Sorry, councillors. 5/2020-2575 does not meet criteria required for consideration by the committee. 5/2020-2585 at 5 Bamville Wood, East Common. So I'll hand over to Heath for comments.
That's fine. So there's some a number of images for this as well to help set the scene. So we have a contemporary style cat-side roof property proposed to replace the existing cottage style bungalow on a plot which is located in the conservation area. Proposed materials are a light grey brick and slates, replacing the standard brick. Basement is also added. The footprint is increasing to the side with number 4 Bamville Wood to allow the streets to follow the street's building line. The original dwelling was a bungalow with accommodation in the roof now proposed. currently 3 bedrooms, which is not to change. 2 off-street parking spaces are provided. There's a planning statement with the application that states that all healthy trees are to be retained, which suggests an element of removal, although no details of this or replacements have been included. I have said consider express concern over the loss of trees on the site with no details of replacements proposed. So yeah, you can see it's quite a twee little sweet cottage style bungalow, and what they're proposing to put in its place is a much more contemporary style dwelling, which I think, yes, if you click onto the next image after that, Mim, you can see here that there's a street scene at the top, which shows the existing of the neighbour and also the proposed, so the existing property or the existing application site. Moving on to and the site which shows what it's going to look like with the proposed new dwelling that we're looking at on this application. And then at the bottom, it shows that there is actually planning approval has been granted for number 4 Banville Wood to be replaced with a much more substantial updated property.
Right. Any comments, councillors? Councillor John.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, on this, I often walk past this particular property going around the common, and I'm concerned about the materials that are being proposed to be used in what is a particularly picturesque area of the common. And secondly, I'm also concerned that even though they've said all healthy trees are to be retained, there's a lot of trees on that site. And again, if trees would be to be removed there, then it again would change the picture, and an area in which we would certainly be looking to conserve the forestry.
Yes. Nigel, did I see you had your hand up?
Thanks, Rosemary. Yeah, I was also concerned about the materials being used. You know, was it really going to blend in? The other point, if you look at this plan, can we go back to the plan? The plan, yeah. When you see the way it goes right back along the what I call the left-hand boundary, does that give a problem with the one next door? How about the 45-degree angle, etc., or is it all quite low in that corner, that north corner?
I think part of the reason why they provided the new street scene of what it has essentially been given permission next door, I think in a sense goes to try and mitigate against any possibility of that happening. Although what is proposed is still like a dormer style bungalow arrangement. But if you click on Mim, actually to image number 15, you can see that there is actually a cat slide roof element there, which does actually slope away from the number 4 Banville Wood, therefore reducing any impact because it's still retained as a bungalow height.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any other comments? Paul first, then Matthew, and then me.
Thank you, Chair. I just wondered whether, I presume this is a conservation area, is it?
Yes, yes.
So do we, I mean, I agree with the trees, because it's a little bit cryptic saying all healthy trees will be kept, because, you know, if you get a tree surgeon around to your house, you suddenly find that half your garden would be gone. And also, yeah, so I don't know, add in something about the character or something. The character, I don't know, yeah, you know, not, it could be detrimental to the character of the area or something.
Yes. Matt, did you want to comment?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a very quick one. Given the sort of, I agree it's quite cryptic wording, but given the cryptic wording, might it be better to highlight by using a word like potential loss of trees? I'm just thinking if they say all healthy trees and we don't specify something related to that makes them look at it a bit more closely, the district council might otherwise look at it and think, well, they've said they're going to keep all the healthy trees. So if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Any other councillors want to comment? I mean, I would comment that when I looked at this, my immediate concern was for the appearance of the building, which in a conservation area and with a very specific feel to it, I think it is out of keeping with the conservation area and street view, and I would be minded to refuse. And express concern over the potential loss of trees with no details provided. So can I just ask councillors, are other councillors minded to agree refusal on the basis that it is out of keeping with the conservation area?
Yep.
Thank you. And I will add on the wording of concern about the trees.
Yes, yeah, I've picked
Thank
that
you.
up. I've made some-
Unanimous.
5/2020 2687 14 Pigots Hill Lane.
Okay, so
Obviously,
once again,
Must be right down the bottom of this, right down the bottom.
it is, yeah. So
Hill Lane.
this is actually the first house after the row of shops at the bottom of Pigots Hill Lane. So the neighbouring property is set higher on the road and has a much higher roof line than the proposal property. Demolition of the garage, although there is 3 parking spaces retained with the new dropped curb proposed to the frontage, so it makes sort of a carriage driveway to essentially make it accessible to all 3 parking spaces. And there are 4 bedrooms in total. The large single-storey side extension element is the side of the shops stroke the access pathway. The footprint of the main house, it doesn't extend further back than the neighbour. There is an extension to the curtilage of the plot by using adjacent land owned by the applicant. So, this is sort of an interesting element to it, although there's no effect on the parking forecourt provision from this, and I've said consider no objection. So I think it was quite hard. If you go to image number 16, Mim, you can see sort of to the right hand side of the property or to the garage, you can see there's like an access way that goes down to some garages and some parking forecourt to the rear, but it's quite clear from the drawings and the images that actually this extension of the curtilage of this particular property will not impact on that, which was one of my major concerns of what sort of impact it would have on the parking provision for the shops and the flats that are above at the back, but there is no change to the parking at all there.
Okay, thanks. Do I have any comments? No, well then we're happy to go with the recommendation. Yeah.
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Right, 5/2020 2710. The application does not meet criteria required for our consideration. And similarly for the next application, 5/2020 2729. And then we go on to 5/2020 2668 at 18 Kirkwick Avenue.
Okay, so there's no actual images for this one because this is quite a simple application. So aesthetically, very little is changing with no impact on the neighbours and the surrounding conservation area. Ample parking to accommodate the additional bedroom to 5 in total. And I said consider no objection.
Do I have any comments? No, so we're all happy to go with the recommendation. Oh, sorry, Nigel, are you voting yes or commenting?
No.
Okay.
That's
Okay,
unanimous.
Thank you.
5/2020 2717 at 11 Morton End Lane.
Okay, so there's some images for this one as well. I don't think we looked at it at the last meeting, just before Christmas. I think it was the meeting before that, where we did look at this proposal, this particular property in this site, where they were actually looking to do extensions and alterations to the property, whereas this particular application is to demolish it and replace it. the decision actually for that particular application is still pending at this stage. So what is the changes essentially from what we'd already looked at before is that there's an increase in the attic size and there are 2 dormer windows to the attic elevation have been added. Current property is quite modest in comparison to the neighbours, with the proposed footprint increasing by quite a lot. The addition of roof accommodation with the increase of ridge height marginally. Proposal appears to be in keeping with the neighbouring properties, although it is much higher than number 9 due to the slope of the road. Demolition of the garage with new crossover access with space for at least 3 cars off street. Addition of 1 bedroom. A number of trees and shrubs are planned for removal. However, there are still details of only 2 replacement trees. So essentially I have repeated the wording that we'd said last time, which was that whilst the committee have no objection to the proposed replacement dwelling, subject to no loss of amenity to neighbouring properties, they do, however, express concern that there do not appear to be sufficient planned replacement trees to satisfy the requirements of policy ESD 14 of the Harpenden Neighbourhood Plan of a replacement ratio of 1 to 2 trees removed.
Thank you. Do I have any comments, or are we happy to go with the recommendation? I agree, it doesn't look vastly, in essence, it's not actually vastly different to what was before, even though they're building a new house. So any comments, or are we happy to go with the recommendation? Yep, okay.
Thank you.
Yep, that's unanimous.
5/2020/2791 at 11 Browning Road.
Okay, so this one, there's no images for this, as there wasn't really any images to show. So this is actually a part retrospective application for the air conditioning unit. So essentially the reason why it was actually refused was that because they were concerned about the potential noise impact on the surrounding properties. So this application has now come back with an acoustic survey that has been conducted, which recommended that noise and vibration mitigating measures were put in place. And these have been provided in the form of an acoustic enclosure which surrounds the condenser unit. So I said no objection, subject to no loss of amenity to neighbouring properties, policy 69 and 73 of the district plan refer.
Could I suggest we add in the words as well, and previous reasons for refusal have been met?
Yeah.
If we're minded to yeah, I think it was if we're minded to go with it. Any comments, councillors? No, we're prepared. We're okay to go with that. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
5/2020/2699 at 4 Roundwood Lane.
Okay, so this one I didn't actually have any images because it was pretty hard to find anything that was of any use. So they're building over the footprint of the existing conservatory and across the back of the house at 2-storey. They're not extending any further back than this particular line. Despite number 4B Roundwood Lane being a lower, more modest property, there does not appear to be any impact on them due to the angle of their property on the plot. No increase in bedrooms, just size, ample parking, no tree works. I say consider no objections, subject to no loss of amenity to the neighbouring properties, policy 69 and 72 of the district plan refers.
Do I have any comments, or are we happy to go with the recommendation? I mean, I'm happy to go with it.
It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
5/2020/2721 at 2 Farm Avenue.
Okay, so there's some images for this one to share. Wait for the images to come up so that my words will make sense. Okay, so the property is a standalone with back gardens of surrounding properties to both sides. There's a small increase in the footprint, but the bulk of the proposal is over the existing flat roof element. There's no clear glass overlooking windows to the neighbours, 3 parking spaces and a garage, no tree works, consider no objection.
Do I have any comments, councillors, or are we happy to go with the recommendation? No, I'm happy to go with recommendation. Okay.
Yep, it's
Thank you.
unanimous.
Thank you.
5/2020/2816 at Vickery House, 3 Ridgewood Drive.
Okay, so there's some images again for this application. Okay, so there's a marginal increase in the footprint, but the major change relates to the raising of the ridge height and a change to the roof form to facilitate better accommodation at the first floor level, which is currently a dormer style. The neighbouring property's ridge height is higher than the existing property. The new design matches other properties in the road, no increase in bedrooms, just the size and their position. Parking provision is unchanged, no tree works, consider no objection.
Well, I'm happy with it. Councillors, are you all happy to go with the recommendation? Thank you.
Unanimous.
Okay, thank you.
5/20/22/813 at 50 Grove Avenue does not meet the criteria for consideration by the committee. And then move on to 5/20/20/2762 at Victoria, Alexandra, Littleport and Collingham House, Marlborough Park.
Okay, so there's a selection of images for this one. We did look at this particular application as a committee last year, which we, as you can see here, we didn't actually have any major issue, bearing in mind this is actually only an outline application. So they're just testing the water to see in principle what the district's viewpoint of it is. And then obviously it was refused with these various different reasons for the refusal. So the observations are that the scheme fundamentally mirrors the refused scheme, but with measures taken to satisfy the reasons for refusal, namely the addition of paved footpaths from the parking spaces, additional amenity space provided for the residential element, the details on the drawing of the refuse/recycling vehicle access, with Veolia consulted on these proposals, or also on these provisions. In addition, the foul water and surface water details have been submitted to the Thames Water with approval given. Ecological assessments have been carried out with no evidence of bats roosting and no impact on nesting birds. Transport and movement transport and movement assessments have been carried out and a noise impact assessment also carried out. The site is highlighted in policy H10 of the Hartmondon Neighbourhood Plan as an allocated housing/commercial site. The proposal is for 721 square metres of commercial floor space and 8 residential units, both of which exceed the requirements of policy H10. Parking provision of 15 commercial parking spaces and 8 residential parking spaces are proposed, which means only 1 space per residential unit remains as per the refused application. 5 trees to be removed, but no details of replacements. So I have said the committee recognise the applicant has taken measures to satisfy the reasons for the previous application refusal and have no objection in principle to the proposal. However, would still like to see additional parking provision provided on the site, which is over 20 spaces deficient from policy standards. Policy T11 of the Hartmondon Neighbourhood Plan refers. So yes, and Mim's just been sharing with you some of the artist impressions as to what they're proposing to put there in due course.
Nigel?
Thanks, Chair. Has anyone ever considered whether this is still overdevelopment of this site? But I know the pictures look very pleasing and all the rest, but knowing where it is and what goes up and down there, my reaction is it's going to be, it looks awfully like overdevelopment to me. Anyone else of that view? Maybe I'm in the minority.
Well, I'm just thinking we previously did have no objections in principle. So we are rather changing our tune, which is slightly tricky. Pip, you had your hand up, Pip?
Do I understand that it's actually in Southdown Industrial Estate?
Yes, it is, yeah. Essentially, I think there's the area down there is split into what they would class as different parks. So Marlborough Park is as you go into the site off of the Southdown Road, essentially is the buildings to the right-hand side. That is known as Marlborough Park. And then around further to the left, I believe, is known as Southdown Industrial Estate.
Yes.
Right.
I believe.
But it is part, so is it part of the industrial estate or not?
It is, yes. It's quite a strange situation where there are actually, I think 3 of the properties listed here are actually residential, and there is one which is commercial. that's already there that obviously are looking to be demolished and replaced with this mixed
Right.
development.
So you don't see that it is having an impact on Southdown Road industrial area going forward? There's going to be no similar claims to reduce the employment opportunities and do residential houses?
I think from what I can see that they're actually offering more than what is already there.
Okay, but you don't see this as being the gradual erosion of the Southdown Road industrial site into a residential area?
I think kind of from what I can tell from the H10 element, it's been highlighted as an area within the neighbourhood plan, and it stipulates in there as to the size, the sort of the floor space that we would require for that particular site, and they are offering more than what is the minimum standard in that. So I don't know. I think it's kind of,
okay,
in a sense, it's like I think the way that you can slightly look at it is it's a modernisation of what is already there, with the offering of more residential and more commercial floor space.
Okay.
I think Paul Court, that is.
Yeah, that was the first thing I wanted to clarify, which Heather just said that at the end, that we now got 8 two-bedroom flats. What's currently there in terms of residential?
Let me double check that for you.
Thanks.
Just get the application in front of me, and that should tell me.
Because I'm more minded to like it generally if that's increasing the amount of residential space, while, as Pip has highlighted, retaining the commercial element, because I think that's the way the world is going. We're looking for brownfield sites, and if we're expanding or certainly not contracting it, then that changes my view on it than if some residential's disappearing.
Okay, so what is listed on the application form is that there is currently one house which is 3 bedrooms. So that's all that is actually on the site as we speak. Yes. What they're proposing to replace is going to be 8 two-bedroom flats.
Okay. Sorry, you just broke up on the first bit. What is there at the moment in terms of residential? Sorry, my line broke up.
Okay, one house with 3 bedrooms.
Yes, that's that.
Okay. So
that's the house. If you drive past it, Paul, that's the house. If you go past it, you see there's a house right on the very corner there.
Okay, so there's quite a big increase in the amount of accommodation.
Yes.
And I had another question linked to this, which is, I can see what has been provided, but then there's a statement that it's over 20 spaces deficient from the policy. It just seemed a lot to me. What is missing? Is it meant to be 1 extra residential, which is 8, and then where's the other 12 coming from?
So,
if I'm reading that right.
Yeah, hang on a moment. So was it 20? Yeah, because where are we? It says 8. Let me just work this out. So we've got 8 properties. Yes, so it should be, in a sense, for the residential, there should be a minimum of 16 spaces available.
Yeah.
Then the commercial element.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Commercial element should be I can find it. Right, here we go. So business use, there should be 1 space per 25 square meters. So I think I'd done the calculation on the previous application and still worked out that there was no change in the quantity of parking spaces from what had been proposed on the previous outline application. So But this time round, I've added the deficient number to make it much clearer that it's not just that it's a little bit deficient, it is actually quite deficient in the quantity that should be provided on the site.
Because that spins it around quite a lot for me, understanding that, taking more towards Nigel's position, which is if you're 20 spaces missing, there's a good reason for that, is they can't get close to finding 20 more car parking spaces. And therefore, that suggests it might be somewhat of an overdevelopment.
Yes.
And I think it's good that you've mentioned it, but I would just, for me, want to say, you know, if we're saying we would still like to see additional parking provision, I just think we would have to be harder on that. In that, you know, if we say like to see some additional, it's, you know, it's at least 20 more, and you know, while, you know, we could be flexible if the number isn't exactly 20, but to be that short would make us look, it's very inconsistent with a lot of other approvals where we've suggested, you know, a problem when they're missing, you know, one parking space or whatever. I appreciate it's a bigger development, but it's quite a big scale. That's my point.
Matt.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I broadly, I think while it might be slightly ambitious, the amount that they're putting on the site, and I think the parking is a problem. I don't actually have that much of a problem with the wording that's suggested. The one thing I would flag is the trees being removed without details of replacements, particularly given that I took on the picture that little bit of green out the what looks like it's behind a wall of some kind to be the new amenity space, which looked like it was sufficient to take a couple more trees at the very least. So I just like, while we're raising it in the things about the parking, if we could also raise the thing on the trees, I think that would be preferable.
Yeah, Nigel, then I'll comment.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, on the parking, in that I quite often drive around there during business hours, you cannot park for love nor money. All these units, as you go in, they're parked nose to tail. So if any of these flats have got second cars, I don't know where they're going to put them. It's as simple as that. I think it's not just one or two short, it's a significant number short.
I was going to say, actually, you can usually get parking spaces of some of those units, because somewhere like Kitchens are there, they do actually have customer parking. I think we've got not exactly an issue, but we have got the fact that we previously had no objection in principle to what is essentially not vastly different. I would suggest we slightly change the wording of our recommendation, and maybe what we say is batted over then back to when it goes to planning at district, that they will have to take a view on whether it's met the previous reasons for refusal. Is that we say something along the lines of keep to the no objections in principle, subject to the amended proposal meeting the previous reasons for refusal, and then say, and I think we could then go along and say something about, in particular, would draw attention to, it would appear there is still insufficient parking provision, and no details of tree planting have been provided, or something along those lines, which would sort of get around the fact that it's, when you've given previously had no objection, it's quite difficult to suddenly, I mean, you can do it because it's a different thing, but I think it might be a neater way of doing it. I don't know what people feel, if they'd be happy to go with that, and we then bat it. So it's because it's going to be planning are going to have to decide in any case whether they've met the reasons for refusal.
Because I suppose the key thing to bear in mind is this still is only outline.
And it is only outline, yes.
The fundamentals of it are still not being agreed. It's just actually the in principle idea of what they would like to have put on the site. Is what they've put.
Well, I mean, perhaps we could even slightly change the word even more and say there's no objection in principle to the development. subject to previous reasons for refusal having been addressed, with sufficient parking provided and replanting of trees details given, and yeah, something along those lines, I think.
That's fine.
So, Nigel, did you want to comment again, or were you saying
Yeah,
that?
you could say no objection in principle to the development, subject to the incorporation of parking at the appropriate level, which at present is grossly insufficient.
Yep. Yes. Don't say grossly. We could just say parking is, yes, subject to provision, adequate parking provision.
Yeah, but it's incorporation of more parking, so they've got to put the parking into the development, which will reduce the amount of space, etc.
Okay. Are we happy with that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. Okay.
That's unanimous.
5/2022/766 does not meet criteria for consideration. Similarly for 5/2022/715, 2809 and 2836. So then move on to 5/2020/2831 20 Greenway.
Okay, so there are some images for this one. Okay, so they're extending to the rear to fill in the gap next to the existing dining room. There's a small extension to the front to bring in line with the garage building line, which you can see just extending further forward there. Building over the rear elements to extend the existing bedroom and to add another. A loss of garage, although there is parking for 3 cars on the driveway. Layout of properties in the road reduces the impact on the neighbouring properties. So no tree works, consider no objection.
Okay, do I have any comments, councillors? No, so we have, oh, Matt.
Thank you, Chair. Just a very quick one to check, given the size of some of the properties around there, that 3 cars is sufficient with an extra bedroom.
Yes, it is, because it's only moving up to 4 bedrooms.
Okay, any other comments? No, otherwise, are we okay to go with the recommendation? Yeah, thank you.
It's unanimous.
5/2022/797 does not meet the criteria for consideration. Similarly for 5/2022/2806, and that brings us to the end of the applications. So we can move on to, just for noting, to agenda item 7, which is an appeal in respect of 34 Townsend Lane. So we could just wait here the outcome of that. Agenda item 8 is just for noting for tree works, unless anybody's got any comments. And similarly, agenda item 9 is for noting on technical applications. And agenda item 10 for noting, which is the weekly list of decisions between the 11th of December and the 17th of December. And between the 18th of December and the 24th of December. And between the 25th of December and 31st of December. And that brings us to the end of the meeting. What's the date of the next meeting? I can't remember. It's the
Tuesday, the 2nd of February.
2nd of February already. Good heavens, where does the time go? Okay, right. Well, that brings us to the end of the meeting. Declare it closed at, well, I make it 23 minutes past 8. Rather quicker than the last 2 meetings we've had. So thank you very much, everybody. And
could I just ask you to just stay there? I'm just going to stop recording. I just need to seek some clarification on something from the previous meeting.